All right, let's bring in our guest. He's one of the very best quarterbacks in NFL history. He took the Bengals to a Super Bowl. He's in their Ring of Honor. You could hear him every weekday morning on WFAN in New York, where he patiently sits through endless calls from disgruntled Jets and Giants fans. The pride of East Islip and all the Islips, really. Boomer Esiason, welcome back to the show, man.
Sal, it's great to be with you again. And I got to tell you, I can't take it anymore, honestly. In the last 10 years, the Jets and the Giants fans have beat me down for sure. Nothing like I was beat down when I was the quarterback of the Jets back in the early 90s. But, man, it has been a long, long 10 seasons. You know, the Giants did have a little bit of the playoff feeling and magic 2 years ago. But since then, it's been all downhill.
Yeah, and I love having you on, and I feel bad because I have to associate you with the Bengals and Jets, who, like you said, are both miserable this year. And it's not your fault. Yeah. I'm not blaming you, but and I'm sure you're sick of talking about them. But all right, let's start with these Jets. As a New York radio host, it's impossible, like you said, to escape the talk. And now there's an Aaron Rodgers Netflix documentary. How freaking exciting is that?
Well, you know, for me, I like it. I want to see it. I want to see what Aaron's all about. I know what he put into this year, trying to come back from the Achilles injury that he had last year. But I think overall for Jet fans and New Yorkers in general, you know, all of the exposure that he has received over the last 2 years since he's been here is probably getting a little bit old for them. And I don't think they want to hear about somebody, you know, taking ayahuasca in the jungle and finding themselves. They want a winning football team, and they want somebody to lead that football team. And unfortunately for Aaron, since he's gotten here, it's been nothing but destruction. I mean, a head coach has lost his job. A general manager has lost his job. Players have been shipped out and shipped in. I mean, it has been a wild 24 months since he got here from Green Bay. So I don't know what to tell you right now. I know he wants to finish on a high note. I don't know if that's going to be possible with this team currently structured the way it is and the way it feels about itself. But I would say right now it's probably one of the bigger disappointments in the history of New York sports.
Yeah, and I get it. But from his perspective, what would you do if you were him? I mean, I know you probably wouldn't have made all these mistakes, brought all your buddies in and everything and gotten this one fired and that one fired and taken off during training camp to go God knows where. But at this point, I know he wants to come back next year. Or do you say, all right, this is my fault. Disregard the documentary, Woody Johnson, because you're not going to love what you see.
I just say that, you know, I walked a mile in this man's shoes back in 93, 4, and 5. I played for the Jets under three different head coaches, a totally unstable franchise. Leon Hess was the owner at that time. It wasn't Woody Johnson. And it wasn't until I think Woody Johnson or Leon Hess got Bill Parcells to come to the Jets and straighten everything out that it finally did get straight because they had a real football man running the team. The instability around the Jets over the last 4 years with a rookie head coach, a rookie offense coordinator 4 years ago, drafting a rookie Zach Wilson, starting him for the Jets under those circumstances was insane. And Joe Douglas has actually built a pretty good team here, but there's something wrong in the building. And I don't know really what that is. I basically liken it to the air being sucked out of the building by such a presence of Aaron Rodgers that everybody is deferring everything to him and expecting him to be a miracle worker at the age of 41.
Okay. All right. So let's put Aaron aside for a minute and let's say Woody Johnson approaches you. And I think you're right about getting a football guy in there. And he gives you three options: Bill Belichick, Mike Vrabel, or let's say Urban Meyer. Just throw it out there.
God, Jesus.
Well, just to see if you're paying attention.
Well, I am paying attention. Number one, Bill Belichick is not coming here. He hates Woody Johnson, hates the Jets. Right. I would think because of extension of Mike Vrabel with Bill Belichick, I don't see Vrabel being here. I don't think Vrabel would want to be here unless they paid him or overpaid him. They need somebody like John Gruden. I mean, that's what they need. They need a personality. They need somebody that's tough, that's going to change the identity of the franchise, much like Rex Ryan did when he came from Baltimore. I don't think Rex is the answer right now. The real question is, who is the GM going to be? And the fact that Mike Tannenbaum is part of a search firm trying to find a new GM for this team is actually kind of laughable to me. So I think the whole thing is headed down another path. It feels like it's going the wrong way right now. I can't wait to see who they hire and then ultimately who they settle on as a coach. But to me, the coach is the biggest thing right now because they need a personality to come in there and grab this building and turn things around. And Belichick would fit that mold, but I just don't think he's going to want to work for Woody Johnson.
All right, so that's the Jets. I want to go to your Bengals for a second. Now, Joe Burrow, they're 4-8. Joe Burrow's metrics are off the charts compared to other quarterbacks with 30 touchdowns, 5 interceptions through 12 games. Like, you're supposed to have 0, 1, or 2 losses. What the hell is going on there?
Well, their defense has been bad, but really what hurt them more than anything is how they started the season and how they continue to start these seasons. And then they try to play catch up. And they certainly have the offense that can play catch up, but now all of a sudden their defense has fallen apart and they're giving up over 30 points a game. It's ridiculous. I mean, there's nothing worse than knowing as a quarterback going into a game that you're going to have to score 30 points in order to even have a chance to stay close in the game and be competitive. And I think, Mike Tomlin deserves a lot of credit. He owns the Bengals. And I guarantee you, he goes into that locker room before the game and says, guys, we're going to out-physical this football team. And not since Vontaze Burfict left has anybody in the Pittsburgh Steelers helmet been afraid about playing in Cincinnati. So right now they are being dominated by both Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And Russell Wilson, God bless him for what he's done, but he can't hang 400 yards on any defense. What do you think it is? Because Lou Anarumo was one of the top guys, right? The top defensive geniuses. And his defense, is it just personnel, or do you think his schemes got old? What is it?
Well, I also think the team doesn't spend a lot of money on defense. And plus, they've had some injuries. They lost a couple key defensive linemen early in the season that really hurt them. Got some guys back, and then lost some more guys. Any of these teams at the top of each of these different conferences, you look at them, you see they can run the ball, they can play defense, and they have a quality offensive line. So right now, the Bengals only have 1/3 of that mixture.
I look at them, and their over/under on FanDuel is still 7.5 wins, and I'm like, oh, they'll get to 8, they'll figure it out. But that would have to win 4 out of 5. There's no definite win on their schedule, right? Which way would you go if you had to take it?
I would say that they should beat the Cowboys on Monday night. Mm-hmm. I think that'll be a scoring fest, and I know that the Bengals and Joe Burrow are going to want to put up good numbers and look good on TV on national television. But I could see probably 3 out of 5. I don't see 4 out of 5.
I look at Jameis Winston, and I think that guy is a miracle. I mean, I wouldn't want him quarterbacking my team, but as a viewer, I think he should be like an all-time quarterback on Monday Night Football. It's like he's shooting a Friday Night Lights pilot, and all the outtakes are included and everything.
And then bang, bang, back-to-back drives with turnovers. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this is really an NFL film moment.
I don't know that the New York fans would love him, but do you have an appreciation of him like I do?
I do. I love covering him. And part of what is makes it so much fun to watch and cover is not only does he just go stand back there and sling it, because he did that in Tampa, he does that everywhere, but are the post-game press conferences that go along with it. And the pregame mic sound stuff that you get from NFL films. He is one of the most enjoyable watches, but also frustrating watches. You know, and when he stands up after the game, Lord Jesus, keep me away from the pick sixes. Who doesn't love that? I mean, that is just absolutely perfect. It's perfect.
Yeah. It's great. All right. Before we go to break, there's still a month in the regular season left. If I lined up the favorites for you, Lions plus 290, Eagles 5-1, Bills 5-1, Chiefs plus 550. This is kind of an easy question, but if I gave you those 4 or the field, what are you doing?
I would take the Bills. Definitely. They seem like they are the it team. They already beat Kansas City. Kansas City's got a tough finishing schedule. I wouldn't be surprised if they lose one. If they lose one and the Bills are able to stay undefeated at that point, they would win by virtue of home field advantage anyway, by virtue of head-to-head. I do think Eagles, Bills, Lions, Bills, all would be great Super Bowls. And we'll get to see a preview of that between the Bills and the Lions in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's a good one. That was my preseason pick for the Super Bowl, and I'm not.
Well, that's great. I watched the Packers too. The Packers they are a really good young team. They fly around. They have good wide receivers. They're no names, but they are terrific wide receivers. And Jordan Love's got a little Jameis Winston in him, a little Brett Favre in him. He'll take chances. He'll throw the ball down the field and he'll turn it over. One of the reasons Green Bay and Detroit are so good, Sal, is that they create turnovers on defense. And when you look at their plus-minus turnover ratio, you see that they're the 2 highest teams in terms of plus getting as many turnovers as they do. That's why they're winning.
You mentioned Josh Allen and this MVP race. It's getting tight according to FanDuel odds. He's actually a decent favorite right now, but at 5-1, chasing him down is Saquon Barkley. As someone who's won the MVP award, how do you define it? Can and should a running back be allowed to win? And is this the year?
Yes, a running back can win it, depending on exactly how much impact they have on a team's offense. Now, Saquon has been the missing piece for the Philadelphia Eagles, much like Christian McCaffrey was for the 49ers when they traded for him from the Carolina Panthers. So if he goes over 2,000 yards, he breaks the rushing record. Now, he'll have done it in 17 games if he doesn't do it in 16 weeks. But and that 17th game, oddly enough, will be against the Giants, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I can't even imagine what the Giants fans going to be.
Even if they don't need it, he's not sitting that one. Yeah.
And especially if he has a chance at the rushing record. Now, I would say this. Josh Allen has been the man. He has been incredible. And, I think he is asked to do so much more than any other player in the NFL as we speak right now. And that's why I would lean towards Josh Allen if he gets his team to the number 1 seed. If Philadelphia is the number 1 seed and let's say Buffalo falls to the 2 or 3 seed, which is possible, I guess, then I would have to say that Saquon would most likely win it, assuming he breaks the rushing record set by, I believe, Eric Dickerson.
Absolutely. And it's a 40-year-old record for crying out loud. So if you're ever going to give a running back the MVP, that's it. He might want to be like, hey, Jalen Hurts, give me one of these 1-yard plunges. This is what works against me when you have 15 touchdowns and I'm, fighting to catch up there. There's an in-season Hard Knocks, the AFC North that started airing this week. How against this would you be on a scale of 1 to 10 when you were a player being featured during the season?
All right, I'm going to be honest. I would have loved it, and
really?
I think my head coach Sam Weish would have loved it. You probably didn't know much about him, but he was all into that. He was all into the NFL films. He was a former player. He was a coach at Bill Walsh out in San Francisco. I mean, he was the press's darling, if you will. He would always give interviews. He'd always be completely controversial. He would be so defensive at times. He would fight with the press. Then he became the darling of the press. I think we would have all loved it. I don't necessarily know that our ownership would have loved it. The Brown family and Paul Brown, of course, being the great head coach he was, he didn't want any distractions around the team. So, however, as a personality and doing what I do now is probably because I played it, in the NFL, and I did give a lot of interviews. I think I would have enjoyed it.
Hey, earlier in the show, we talked about snow games, and it looks great on TV. I grew up in cold weather. I grew up in Long Island also, and then went to school upstate New York. So I feel like I get a little nervous when I see the snow. I could see it 3 times a year. Maybe I'm just getting old. How do you feel about the snow games? I feel like they're either 38-3 or 6-3, and there's no in between. I don't know.
Yeah, I played in a couple of them, and one was out in Denver. It was a very high-scoring game, and we actually had an errant shotgun snap that ended up costing us the game at the end of the game. And then we played up in New England in 35 mile-an-hour winds, rain from start to finish, 4 inches of rain, I think, that day, and it was probably like 45 degrees. I remember Bruce Coslet saying to me, Boomer, you got to throw the ball into the body of the wide receivers. They can't reach and catch it. Yeah. And I looked at him in the middle of all these rain sheets coming in between us. And I said, Coach, you think I'm playing in a goddamn phone booth out here? So, it's always interesting. I always liked it because I always felt like we had the advantage on offense because we knew where we were going. And the defense was always reactionary.
You talked about Buffalo and Miami and all these rivalries, and we saw what happened in college football this week with the flag planting during rivalry week. Where do you stand on players planting their flag on the rival's field after they won?
I put that on the head coach. The head coach has got to, control his team. I think it stinks, and I think you're asking for a brawl to break out and stupid things to happen, pepper spray being used. So to me, that, especially in college, it's on the head coach. In the pros, it's on the player because he's supposedly a grown man. And grown men need to act like grown men when they're supposed to. And I think that it's just a really bad look for the University of Michigan.
So you cover New York sports. You get to take a little break from football. Where do you think Juan Soto ends up? Yankees, Mets, somewhere else, Boston?
First of all, let me tell you something, Sal. And I've said this on the radio show, although we're not allowed to mention his name on our radio show because we're sick and tired of all the seems like, maybes, could be's, looks like, that kind of language that is written in every article that is being written about him. So I'm not spending $600 million for a guy who I don't believe is a 5-tool player. I think he's a really great hitter. I think he's a decent outfielder, and that's it. I don't see speed on the base paths. I don't see stolen bases like Shohei Ohtani did this past year. I don't see the power that Aaron Judge has. He may hit for average, but Aaron Judge is the MVP and he's on your team. So I'm not paying $600 million. Hey, give me Pete Alonso, Alex Bregman, Santander. I'll take those 3 guys and I'll plug them in the lineup. And guess what? We'll win as many games. It's
so funny. I have a lot of Yankee fan friends that go the same route as you. Like, let's get 3 big time players in there instead of Juan Soto, even though he did. I know you say it's Aaron Judge. He did take them to the playoffs. He took them pretty far, and that right field is kind of perfect for him, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm a Met fan, and right. I wanted him like a few years ago when he got traded to San Diego. I said, go get him now, and maybe we can have him for 3 or 4 years. And they couldn't make the trade for him. He wanted to go to San Diego. Good riddance. See you later. Now, at this moment, if I were the Mets, I'd want Pete Alonso, Bregman, Santander. If you don't want Alonso, maybe you move Vientos over to first base, and then you bring Bregman in, and then you get Santander. Like, there are so many other things you can do with that amount of money. And by the way, I don't think that guy is going to be selling that many tickets. This is not Shohei Ohtani or Aaron Judge. Right. So those guys sell tickets. People want to see those guys. This guy, great player, don't get me wrong, and God bless him for whoever wants to pay him that amount of money. I wouldn't do it personally, but I think the Mets are going to overpay, and I think they're going to try to get him here.
Yeah, you said 600. It'd probably be closer to 700 million. So
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's nuts. All right, Boomer, I've got one more question for you. We call this Cuz's Conundrum.
Cuz's Conundrum.
Okay. You are a huge hockey fan, New York Rangers specifically, right? That hasn't changed as far as I know.
That has not changed, no.
All right. Now, the Rangers make you an honorary team captain. They go on to win the Stanley Cup. You get your name on the cup and everything. New Yorkers recognize you as the good luck charm. You're the grimace, the OMG for the Rangers, but it actually worked, okay? You win the cup. Now, here's the downside. You have to travel with the Costco guys and give out booms and dooms every day for a month. You're the original Boomer. Are you familiar with AJ and Big Justice and these Costco guys?
Yes. 100%. Yes. I would do that for a cup. 100%.
You would? Wow. Every day. Chicken bakes and chocolate chunk fudge. You would do it.
Boom or doom.
Yes, I would do it. Yes. I mean, look, I saw one cup in 94. My son was 3 years old. We shared it together. He doesn't remember an inkling of it. And I would love to share it again with him and my grandson before I die. So hopefully in the next couple of years, it will happen.
All right. Well, I appreciate that fandom. That's a commitment. I have to say, that's a lot of chicken bakes. By the way, you're the original Boom. You should sue these guys. You should be able to get in on royalties.
Well, Chris Berman, gave himself my nickname. I don't know what else.
Whatever.
A lot of people like to use it. So, right.
All right. Hey, the Boomer Esiason Foundation fighting cystic fibrosis. For more information, go to esiason.org. Don't be cheap. It's Giving Friday. Listen to him every weekday morning on WFAN. Boomer, thanks for jumping on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, Sal. Have a good weekend. See ya.